Welcome back to the garage, guys. I'm Damien, and this is the binder build. I got plenty to cover in this video, so let's just jump right in. But while I do that, would you please hit that like button for me? Do me a favor there. And with that said, in the last video, we were working on the B-pillar landing pads, and so let's pick up where we left off there. With some CAD design work done, that'd be cardboard aided design, I cut some templates for the A-pillar landing pad, so here I am cutting them with the bandsaw. I don't know if I've said this before, but in case I didn't, I love this bandsaw. After cutting the shape and test fitting it into the bug, I used a Sharpie to mark where I needed to wire wheel the paint off. Then I made some templates for the end pieces. Marked and cut them out. And finally tack welded them in place. Step 1, finish up these little mounting plates. Step 2, build the bars coming down. I will need to cut this whole corner out and drop it all the way down to this plate. At that point, my goal is then to weld the cage to the A-pillar, as well as create little plates with dimple dies or something in connecting it to the windshield frame, as well as the B-pillar. And then I'm going to weld these back on, trimmed around the cage, so that I could still fit a stock pad that I think I've shown you guys in the past. If not, I'll put a picture of it here. That includes all of the gauges and the layout and these little grills around the tack. I'll be replacing the speedo with a tack. I'm not sure if I'm going to run a speedometer in this thing, but yeah. So that's the goal. That's the steps. Moving on. More welding to the stock sheet metal, my favorite. Well, at least I got to weld the thick stuff first. Then I connected the landing pad to the heater channel and used the sanding wheel to clean things up. With all the landing pads in place, it's time to get the bender back out to build the down bars. All right, so I've been working on the cage again. I want to try to keep this as tight as possible, so that'll land it right like so, right? If you look at, as I practiced a little bit with the 023 wire, it seemed to get better. And then here, even better still. Here's the front ones. And you can see I got a lot better. I did use the grinder trying to clean up these edges. This thicker stuff, obviously, I could get a nice bead on, so I was able to turn back up the welder. But everything to the body itself, I had to super turn it down. It was so slow, but it actually came out well, and I did a lot better than my first welds for sure. But now we're going to build the down tubes, and then get my trusty dusty thing. I want to build the tubes that go from up there down to the feet. So after swapping the 1 3/4 die back on the bender and cleaning up the tube, I cut the tube to length and got ready to bend. A quick test fit showed that I was right on track, so I bent up a second one for the driver's side. Now I did use my trusty angle finder to help me figure out the cope I needed for the halo, and with a little effort, the initial cope was in place and I was test fitting again. A notcher is a great kind of tool to use, but I always use my grinders to finalize the cope just to make it nice and good fitting. Then a quick trim with a chop saw. And then on to the other side, which is the same process. Once I was satisfied, I started tacking things in. But I have to say that 023 wire was a little too thin for this 1/8 wall thickness, so I did a quick swap back to the 035. After a little more cleanup, I tacked the tubes in place. After welding the inside of the B-pillars to the halo, I copied a technique I learned from the Formula Drift market to weld the inaccessible side to the B-pillar tubes. In order to get the outsider get all the way up in there, that required me to take a ratchet strap and put it between these two and pull them together. Sometimes you have to push them back in. These will go in not exactly as easily as I'd like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that piece of wood and put them in between. Once I get one in its place, I'll tack it, and then I'll hammer the rest of it in until it pushes the other one back into its place. And that will get me my main hoop or my bay pillar. This actually fought me a lot more than I thought it would, but in the end, I won. Now we're going to build the tubes that go from up there down to the feet. And so to do that and to get the most space in this cage, I'll shut the door and then I'll basically just cut out the dash so it snakes right in there. And as you can see, I will have enough room between the door and this is the mount bolt, the mount hole for the dash. So I'm hoping not to have to take that out. Okay, so that's basically where that's going to sit. And then I'll trim the dash back out as I try to put this back in place, cutting where it's going to go around the tube, and then basically tack weld the crap out of it so that I can sand it down, paint it, and then put the dash pad on, and it'll look like it'll look like this tube's going right. It will be going right through the dash, down at the bottom, and down to the mount plate. But yeah, so that's the plan. Time to bend some tube. I really didn't want to screw this up, so after a bunch of measuring and removing the tape from the dash so I could mark the cut lines, I didn't forget to give a little prayer to God for some help. Then I started cutting. This part is nerve-wracking. Taking an X dash and cutting it, to say I was nervous was an understatement. I just kept fitting and refitting the tube in place, hoping I didn't screw it up. I did determine that I need to recess the tube into the A-pillar a little, so I removed the tape from the bottom of the A-pillar and prepared to do even more cutting. Did I say that this is my first bug and the most body work I've ever done? Alright, so here we go. Cut this out, obviously. Just such the paint. Alright, so cut that out down to there. And then that piece there, I cut out of here. Now, why did I do that? To fit this up in there like so. I'm going to use my pliers and stuff and bend all those back straight. I got to do a little bit more trim in that little piece right there is keeping it from sitting flat. But if it's set flat, boom, there we go. Well, if I can get it in there. Yeah, so I could go ahead and weld that piece in. It'll come up, and yeah, then I just need to have that one bend there. It'll come up to there along the A-pillar. All of this will be welded back in. The strength that was lost by me cutting out that piece will be gained back by the actual cage itself, hopefully. And I have a full footprint on my foot plate, my landing pad. After more hemming and hawing, I took a leap of faith, measured out the angle as well as the length of the tube for the A-pillar. Then I cut and cleaned the length of tube, bent it, test fit it. Yes, I made it along, but figured out my second bend, bent that, and believe it or not, it seemed to be about right, so I gave it an initial notch and reinstalled it. All right, let's see, first try. Let's see what happened, huh? So, not too bad. Kind of comes down like so. And then down, you can see it through there. I know. I need to do some trimming. Okay, this is first step. So this is too far out. So if I can, and that's going to go out like so. It's going to go in like so. It's going to come out a little bit. In a little bit. Yeah, that's the thing is that comes right up to the door. I know it looks like I may have cut it too short, but with the bottom needing to go outward and the dash area needed to come inward and some fine tuning with the notch actually worked out to my favor. The piece fit. So I got the second piece of tube, and using the first as a template, I bent the second one for the driver's side. After removing the tape and marking out the cut lines on the driver's side, I started cutting. Luckily, the driver tube fit as well as the passenger side did. With both sides fitting, I started wire wheeling the areas needing welding. And you see I went ahead and ground off a lot of the paint off the metal. That's so when I take this back and I put it back on, I'm going to trim this piece around the tube when it's in there, and then I could weld it back in place. So it should work out pretty well, except there's going to be a tube in there as well. So I had to get the paint off, so when I start welding it, it'll be fine. I got to clean up that weld there. You see when I cut this off, I went through the support on the other side. Not that the support's going to be a big deal because it's going to have the tube, but still, you might as well keep it all as strong as possible and trim as little as possible. So yeah, that's it for there. Let's keep going. I will say there was some trimming that needed to be done, so I made small adjustments to the tube, the copes, and the dash as I worked on the final fitment for the tube work. All right, so did that work? Let's take a look. So, got it up here in line. Not too much of a gap on this side, but whatever. Up against the dash. All the way down to the foot. Probably could have scooted it over just a skosh more. I could probably just break those tacks and move it. And then we got about a half finger ish. I can't go that. Oh, I can go that way. Cool. But anyway, so yeah, plenty of room for the door pad or door panel, and some other tubes that are going to come off this. But anyway, that's what she looks like. With the fitment in the acceptable range, it was time to start welding. Now I did put some tape behind the tube to protect the paint as much as possible. I am kind of trying to keep that rugged but refined look. The only thing left was to weld everything up, so after swapping back to 035 wire, I got to it. While mocking everything up, I did use some thick folded cardboard spacers to keep the halo centered and spaced away from the roof. Now that it's all welded up, it's time to remove all that, as well as the tape that I was using to protect the paint. This cage is unbelievably solid now. Very happy about that. Everything else doesn't look too bad. Cleaned this up with a little bit of grinding, but honestly, not grinding, excuse me, sanding pad, but most of that is all, what is that called? Wire wheel. Anyway, everything else seems to be pretty nice. Very happy with the way it's coming out. And yeah, all right, as you can see, the main cage structure is in the bug and it's solid. I will say that last video segment of me actually in the bug making this video, I was a little bummed. I had been working on welding the cage to the A-pillar and let's just say I was struggling. I was really struggling. But I'll cover that in the next video when I actually cover the reconstruction of the dash as well as trying to weld to the wickedly thin stock sheet metal. But in all, I have to say I'm pretty stoked the way the cage is fitting in the bug. I'm also super happy with how solid it feels and how it's going to reinforce the body of the bug quite a bit. That's all I have for this video, guys. I'm actually actively editing the next one, so stay tuned and we'll see you on the next one. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, I love hearing from you guys. Go ahead and leave them in the comment section. But until then, I'm Damien, and this is The Binder Builder.